So many people act like leeches.
Hey, welcome back to King Sportscast, episode 5. Really excited, crazy weekend of football. I'm real pumped to get on with Wayne and get going with some of this info. It was a crazy weekend for me. I actually got to go to the Bucs-Saints game, which was pretty exciting, and lo and behold, my Patriots get swoopy-dooped behind my back. What's going on, Wayne?
Hey man, what's up? Yeah, really good games yesterday. You know, it kind of sucked on Saturday. There wasn't much going on as far as football. You know, you had the Army-Navy game, which was cool, but after that, there wasn't much. There was a few fights and stuff like that on Saturday night, but man, did Sunday make up for it. These games, these AFC games, these AFC teams that are really leading the playoff push, they got upset big time. A lot of teams got upset, not just your Patriots, man, but yeah, I guess we can start off with that one. You know, I know you're a Patriots fan, man, but to be on the opposite side, you know, unbiased opinion, that was a cool-ass play. You had two laterals, and as soon as Kenyon Drake got a hold of that ball at around the 40-yard line, you kind of knew that he had a chance to make it. And then he just starts breaking tackles, and he starts getting the edge, and the only man left back was Gronk. And Gronk is a tight end. He did really well offensively, but having him at that safety position, man, it was a tough angle for him.
Yeah, so if, you know, I understand obviously in that exact situation with that format, Gronk is not going to be able to tackle a Kenyon Drake in that situation, but you have to think about it in perspective. They just completed 2 great laterals, went around 3 or 4 other defenders with a great block, and then Gronkowski is one-on-one with that running back when he doesn't play defense, probably hasn't played since high school minimum. So yes, that's not a good situation, but when you get the ball thrown up high in the air, I've seen it. Gronk's been back in that formation for almost a decade now, and it hasn't gone to bite them yet till now. So obviously I'm not trying to justify it. I mean, he crapped his pants. Like, he literally took his pants off and crapped himself and fell down and gave up.
Honestly, I don't really put that on him that much, just because of the simple fact that he's getting up there as far as age. You know, he was already talking about, you know, contemplating retirement if he got
much
traded.
Slower.
Yeah, he's just not physically there anymore, man. Like, he's just a big target. Brady can get him the ball, obviously, when he's healthy. When he's on the field as a tight end, he's the man still. He's still got a huge catch radius. You know, I would put him up against a lot of safeties, a lot of D-backs, you know, going and getting a 50-50 ball. He's going to go get it. And then, like you were saying, in that situation where the wide receiver is going to go up for the 50-50 ball, you know, who else it could be better than Gronk? But when he was coming down, you could tell that he was obviously standing basically on the goal line, right, for the Hail Mary. And he was running up. Kenyon Drake was running to the sideline. There was no chance, man. I'm surprised that he didn't get hurt on the play, honestly, just looking at, like, the angle that he took and just the simple fact that Kenyon Drake is, 24 years old, 25 years old. You know, Gronk just, he's not there anymore, but he's still a beast, and I look for them to bounce back, and they might actually knock the Steelers out of the playoff race if the Baltimore Ravens can string together a couple wins here at the end of the season, because they just got beat by the Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, in my professional opinion, we're going to beat the Steelers again because we beat the Steelers consistently.
They own the Steelers. They really do.
No, actually, it's like the one team really in NFL history that has had the Steelers number. The Steelers are the best team. I mean, you have 6 titles, so if you're going to hold titles as the measure of an owner or an organization, they're the best. They have 6 currently. You know, we could argue about when they won them or what's the meaning of those titles, but they're number 1 at the moment, and we're the only team that can really say, hey, we have your number, and we're kind of right there in titles too. I think the Patriots, they always have trouble in Miami at the end of the year. It's that, like, one game where it's like, it's that grind out, like the Miami, oh, it's another shitty year. Let's at least try to, like, you know, beat the Patriots, you know, just to get that, you know, they're the only one in the AFC East that's really given us trouble consistently. Like the Jets had this like a couple years with the defense, they were okay. They really didn't really beat us that often, but and obviously the Buffalo Bills are, the low key northern trash can of the NFL. So yeah, I think that the Steelers have a really good chance of missing the playoffs just because they don't seem to put it together well. They don't. I don't know. I feel like they can't get AB the ball. Like they get Juju the ball a lot, and he's honestly been the MVP of that offense. It's unbelievable how good he's been this year compared to how good he was. It was like he was like a out of nowhere type of player. Some people kind of liked him, but he definitely came out of nowhere as being that good. And for him to almost improve on that season, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, so I was looking at the upcoming schedule for the Steelers. It honestly looks like out of the last three games, they got to play the Patriots and the Rams. So just to think into that perspective, the Rams are only beatable when you have an elite defense like we saw with the Bears. The Steelers do not have an elite defense, right? So say they lose in Foxborough and then they win their game and then they go get beat by the Rams, they would have to have the Baltimore Ravens lose all three games, which is not happening. The Ravens are a really good, sound team. They're not going to lose three games in a row. Actually, that'd make it four games in a row. It's not going to happen, right? They just gave the Chiefs a really, really good game. So the Steelers would have to have Baltimore lose out if they go 1-2, which, man, doesn't look very likely. I mean, what do you think? Do you think if they were to miss the playoffs, do you think Tomlin is coaching for his job at this point?
It's possible. I mean, I would probably realistically go in that route, but I think Tomlin holds more water in that owner's organization's mind because he's kind of I mean, it's how good this team's offensively been. He's a defensive guy, and this team's not been good on defense. This year they've been a lot better, especially the second half. They've been okay at times, but I mean, they're gonna come out and Tom Brady's gonna pluck them again. I just haven't seen what they've done differently that's gonna make Tom Brady not beat them. I just don't see it. I hope they, maybe they prove me wrong. The Dolphins proved me wrong. I didn't think they were gonna win that game, but whatever. I think they could. I mean, the Ravens have a serious defense. That's a team. I would rather the Steelers make the playoffs than the Ravens. I don't want to play the Ravens from the Patriots. Terrell Suggs is going to kill Tom Brady. He's a scary guy. I don't want him on the field with my guy. I just that the Ravens always kind of have our number. For me, it's like the Ravens always give us a tough game. Where the Steelers, it's always like we always get them or we beat them by a lot. So I don't worry when I play the Steelers, even in the weirdest way. And I feel like we just have a mental edge, kind of like the Toronto Raptors did it with LeBron kind of thing. It's like they're confident against anyone, but when it gets to Brady, they just kind of are tentative because they know what could happen, and then it keeps happening. So I'm excited. I hope honestly, I hope they don't make the playoffs, and I hope Tomlin gets fired, and I hope Le'Veon goes in somewhere and balls out. But that's just my personal opinion on the matter.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say. So earlier in the year, they started out, I believe 2-2, 3-1, or something like that, around those lines, because they had tied that game with the Browns, and they started out really rough. And that's when Le'Veon, started getting a lot more talk, as far as him coming back and if they were actually going to pay him, all that good stuff. And then they went on a really good run with James Conner, where he was getting the ball, 25 times. Well, Conner's not there now, so he's hurt. If he misses this Patriots game, I don't think they have a chance in hell to beat the Patriots, but I could be wrong. They have to win. They have to beat the Patriots or the Rams, and that is a tough-ass schedule to end in December. Beating Tom Brady in December is always going to be tough. Beating the Rams after they just came off of a horrible loss where Goff, threw 4 picks and barely put up any yards passing. Gurley was shut down. You're going to get the best of them too, because they just got a nice little wake-up call. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with that. I think they should keep Tomlin around just for the simple fact that, who the hell are they going to target? There's not a lot of big names going around. There's some of these up-and-coming offensive and defensive coordinators, but Tomlin usually has a pretty good, grip on that locker room, and usually has his guys playing come playoff time. They're just one season removed from making the AFC Championship, so I think the talk is a little crazy right now. But if they were to miss the playoffs, it wouldn't surprise me at all. Kind of staying in that division. What about the Browns, man? What about the Browns? Just I know Cam's hurt, and had the shoulder surgery, all that good stuff. He's going to have more surgery in the off season, but they just they dominated that game. They've gotten 3 wins now since Hugh Jackson's been fired, and Baker's looked awesome. I think that is the most sought after head coaching position right now that's open. I'd rather, like we were talking last week, would you rather have the Browns or the Packers job? Me personally, I'd rather have the Browns. I think they got a lot of good young talent. Baker looks awesome. You have you're going to be completely in control of that organization. What do you think? Who would you rather have if you got to pick? I know we talked a little bit about it last week. The Browns and the Packers job.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we're really, really close. If Hugh Jackson knew what he was doing and Baker liked him, they might have squeezed out those early games. And we're really talking about a Browns team sneaking in the wild card, or at least having a shot. They fumbled a couple games early in the season.
Yeah.
So
think about this. Like you just said, if they would have beat the Steelers in that first OT game, then they should have beat the Raiders. I'm not ever going to blame the officials, but it was a little bit bullshit at the end of that game to even put it in overtime. They should have beat the Raiders. So we're adding 2 more wins, and they're playing for that division along with the wild card spot if that were to happen. If the record holds up as is. So yeah, like you were saying, that's awesome.
yeah, and it's really cool to see Baker kind of prove the haters wrong and just keep playing. And I don't know, you gotta like what you see from him. They showed some video I saw on Twitter. It broke down why he's good. He has patience looking down the field, not being impatient and running when he shouldn't, and just resetting his feet. I don't know, doing a lot of pro things, putting in a tight window. It was one throw, so you don't want to overhype him, but I just don't see what he couldn't do. And as soon as you get more of his weapons back from injury, put more weapons around him, the continuity grows over a year or two. I mean, the sky's the limit. And yeah, that job's exciting because you're gonna get 3 years. You're gonna get 2 to 3 years. It's not like a Packers job, which you could lose on that first year. Because I mean, every year you lose with Rodgers, it's is this the end? So I agree with you. Especially after this week, it looks better. Obviously we're living in the moment there, but if you're, I mean, come on, we're literally a season or so removed from 2 years straight of them not winning a football game, and then when they start the season, they tie and almost win multiple games. That was not easy for them to get the win off their back. They get the win monkey off their back, and all of a sudden they're streaking. They're they look like a powerhouse. They're not just scrappy wins like they were earlier. I mean, they're literally putting it on people. That offense looks fun. That's a new age offense, and it really kind of also opens the door with some of these Baker Mayfield quarterbacks. Are you going to have more Drew Brees gunslingers who are a little smaller because of the safety of the game? I don't know, that's pretty cool in my book.
Yeah, and also on the defensive side of the ball, Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, they got a lot of good young pieces on that end as well. And their defense looks stout, man. I mean, Cam had multiple opportunities to get the Panthers back into the game, and he just couldn't do it because they were playing so good on defense. And if they tighten, their DBs are there, their safeties are there, the pass rush is there. If they tighten up that run defense, man, I think you could potentially see them, maybe an above 500 team next year, or fighting for a playoff spot if they get the right head coach in there. So good stuff coming out of Cleveland, man. I'm glad to see it. From our generation, we have seen them struggle for years and years and years. So to see them, at least having hope now with Baker, he looks like the stud of the draft. I mean, Saquon's been awesome, but as far as the quarterbacks are concerned, they hit it right on the head because he is outplaying all those other guys that were in his draft class. Other than that, what other games did you see? I mean, we have a bunch to talk about, but what was your biggest takeaway from all the upsets and all the games, and the one win speak out a little bit more than the others?
For me, honestly, I think the one that stood out the most watching all of them, because it was a fantasy playoff week, so honestly I was probably watching more football. I was switching around channels, using my football package. I was actually having a good old time. And honestly, that Cowboys Eagles game, man, like if you're like, how is Dak Prescott to take his team down and throw a pass for the winning touchdown? That's how the Cowboys look doing it, throwing the football. And obviously,
dude, it was 9-6.
Yeah,
at the end of the third quarter, 9-6 Cowboys at the end of the third quarter. That's insane.
I was facing Zeke too, so I was like the whole time freaking out. And then it's Amari Cooper. He's the first receiver in NFL history to score 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter or overtime in the history of the NFL. First receiver to do it. And like that outpour of emotion at the end of that game was so cool to see how like he was just sitting there. Like that is, if you ever loved football, especially the way I did, that is that moment you always wanted. Like literally you were just the man at the highest level, and literally like you just sitting there like you could see it in his eyes. Like he's like, I'm that dude. Like I'm that fucking dude. And to think about it, they were comparing his stats from how many games he played with the Raiders till now and what he's done. It's like it speaks volumes on either the Cowboys, which I didn't think they were really that impressive play calling with passing at the moment anyway, or does it say a lot about John Gruden and the Raiders and where they're at right now?
Yeah, like we discussed before, man. The Raiders they won that against Pittsburgh this week, but it honestly looks like Gruden came in with the mindset of, I'm going to go get a top 5 pick. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to trade off any assets that I have and get as many first-round picks and build a team. But I will be the first to say that I got to apologize to Amari Cooper, because I thought it was a joke whenever the Dallas Cowboys traded their first-round pick for him. I was like, man, this guy is just wasted talent at this point. It's crazy to me that they would give up a first-round pick. But then when you look at it, how young he is. He's only a few months older than Calvin Ridley, who is a rookie right now. He's already got, this is his 4th season. So, the age, the raw talent, all that was already decided in the trade, and made it make a little bit more sense than just looking at his stats, right? But then you look at how they're 5-1 since making that trade. They were completely out of the division. Jason Garrett was pretty much coaching for his job before they made that trade. They make the trade. Alex Smith gets hurt. We knew that Redskins were phonies. They beat the Eagles twice, and now they're probably going to win that division, and they have a hell of a good defense that not a lot of teams will want to play in come playoff time. So, yeah, to your point, why is Amari Cooper – why was he not getting 15 targets a game? If you suck that bad, just target your best player and see what happens at this point, because – what do you have to lose? At least build him up and get his confidence up, because obviously, when the Cowboys traded that first-round pick, they said, all right, we're going to trade this and we're going to actually use this dude, and he has produced 2 games over 200 yards.
Yeah, man, honestly, it was crazy. I think they're just not targeting him. Or like offenses are trying to be like, how Tom Brady's spreading the ball around and it looks awesome, and then other teams might think that they maybe like they have an Amari Cooper they should feed, but they're like, oh, we gotta spread it around and be like that type of offense, and they're not that yet, and they're just trying to be too cute, like the Julio Jones thing. Like maybe they're just not, like they should just feed Julio Jones more, like I feel like maybe it's that, maybe maybe Dak Prescott's the quarterback we never knew. No, I mean, Dak's been awesome. He's been playing awesome. I love how they're like letting him run it and do like his thing. Like he obviously can make some of the throws, can't make all the throws. We know that. He has a great running game. If you can at least let those extra plays where the run's not there and the throw's not there, that he can maybe get 5 yards in a scramble, he's big and fast enough to get that to you. And the way the NFL is, I don't think the NFL is the way as it used to be where you can't run it all as a QB. Cam Newton's proved that. He's basically been a mini running back as playing quarterback. So,
dude, Josh Allen's running all over the damn place.
Josh Allen is huge. Who is the way the rules are and the way all the hits, I mean, not saying they can't hit people, and there are definitely hits, but it used to literally be smash everyone wherever you were. And I feel like now that the players are so more speed-oriented, not physical, like the way the game's going, someone who's built like Cam Newton and Josh Allen, Dak Prescott's a little smaller, but he's like 6'3", 230. I mean, he's not a small dude. He's tough.
Yeah, he's tough.
Yeah, so if you can like implement that and do the RPOs where it benefits him, I think that's definitely a route. If that's the QB you want, if Dak Prescott's your QB, right? Like, I'm not saying like everyone should do this. If that's the QB you want and that's the way you got to do it, you got to let him be him. Like, you can't be like, let's try to make it. If he can become the pocket passer, that's great, but like let him do what he can do, especially while he's young. You know what I mean? And you have that team in kind of a primer stage because, Zeke's in his prime. Even though he's young, he's a running back. So you want to be able to get that offensive line and Zeke in a Super Bowl situation or a conference championship situation to have them shine or take you to the promised land, because Dak's not going to do that. But if he could at least do what he needs to do, make the throws, and obviously now that they have anyone on the outside that's scary, it helps Zeke, I'm sure, tremendously.
Well, yeah, and all on the offensive side of the ball, their defense has been top 10 all year long. I mean, we're talking about just, a couple of weeks ago they shut down the Saints offense. It was a Thursday night game, and we've seen those Thursday night games pretty much, teeter to the home team almost every time because of a short week. But still, they shut down one of the best offenses in the NFL. And they ended up winning that game. That defense is legit, man. I really think it's legit. They have a good pass rush. They have real fast, linebackers able to stop the run. So that takes a lot of pressure off of Dak. He doesn't have to he doesn't have to be a pocket passer. He can be that rough and tough guy, just scraping for 4 or 5 yards. Him and Zeke, and that game was 9-6 going into the fourth quarter, and the Eagles had to they scored a few times, and Amari Cooper and Dak were going back and forth. But other than that, that was a pretty low-scoring game, for the first 3 quarters. And you give Dak and Zeke a chance, and now Amari Cooper, you never know. I mean, that's a really good team set up for a good playoff run. I wouldn't want to play him, as far as that goes, and I'm sure a lot of these NFL teams don't want to play him in the playoffs.
100%, because even the last couple of years, the Cowboys weren't scary, even though they had their running attack was crazy. Their defense sucked. They weren't good defensively. This year, with Van Der Esch and all the way that their corners are playing, they've put together a pretty good defense. And if Dak, can keep getting better in these clutch situations, that's a scary team. They can rush with 4. That's the scenario to beat a Breeze and a Brady and these and a Rivers. That's that Giants team. If Prescott can just be clutch and do what he needs to do every once in a while and not turn the football over, I mean, that's a scary team. That's a scary team to play. So and then I think another scary team just like that for that same reason is the Chicago Bears, man. That defense is so legit. And honestly, right now, I'm saying it, Khalil Mack should be in the MVP voting. There's no doubt in my mind. The Bears were no one before this year. You cannot tell me anyone had faith in the Bears, and now they are literally about to win that division or that's a scary team.
Man, he is a monster. And then you have a super young rookie, Roquan Smith, who I personally loved him in the draft.
Awesome
He was
guy.
one of my favorite players. His arms are so freaking long, and he's so big and fast. He's crazy, man, and he's only getting better. There was a couple plays where he made mistakes. He had an interception on, everybody picked off Goff yesterday. He had 4 picks. I mean, the Rams offense is legit, and they shut them down. Like they could not do anything. Gurley was not doing anything. You didn't see those long runs that Gurley has for 15, 20 yards. He wasn't breaking off anything. They were playing really good defense. Mitch didn't have a good game, and they still won. So if the Bears can win when Mitch isn't impressive, then when Mitch is going up against a bad defense and he's had those 6 touchdown games this year, they're a tough team, man. They are, in my opinion, they're a Super Bowl candidate, just like any of these other teams that you would call out, being in the NFC. So I'm really interested to watch them in the playoffs come time whenever people got to travel up to Soldier Field, and if they can squeeze some home field advantage in these last 3 games, you might see them in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I don't know if I would. They're like scary teams, I think, to play up towards the Super Bowl, and they definitely have that potential. But I still would want like a little bit better quarterback play to win a Super Bowl or to really streak. When I say scary to play, I'm not like Super Bowl contender. I think the Bears are a little more than the Cowboys because it's still like they're the Cowboys, and they kind of have that monkey on their back until they win another title, that it wasn't just the fluke team of the 90s and the teams in the 70s. I feel like for whatever reason they have like a negative perception of themselves publicly more, even though they're iconic or like everyone knows who the Cowboys are. They're not like the Cowboys of the 70s where they were America's team. They're not America's team anymore. They're a very famous team. They have a lot of notoriety. Everyone knows them, and they're worth a lot of money. But for them, I think I would favor them more in a Super Bowl than even maybe the Bears. Even though the Bears are so good on defense, I trust Dak Prescott more than Mitch Trubisky.
Sure, yeah. Dak's a little bit older, a little bit more experienced. Both are going to have a tough time, because we know when it comes to playoff times, you'd rather have a Drew Brees or a Tom Brady or even a Phillip Rivers, even though he hasn't had a lot of success because they haven't been able to get there too much. But I'd rather have one of those QBs. But you got to think in the NFC who they're going to be playing against. The toughest quarterback is probably Drew Brees that they're going to be playing against in the playoffs. So they were able to shut down that Rams offense. So it's going to be interesting to see, because it seems like on the NFC side we have all defense, or defense for the most part, and then on the AFC side we have mostly all offense with the Chiefs, the Patriots, the Chargers, all those guys. So it's going to be a fun time these last few weeks, and a lot of cool games coming up. Another game, I guess, that stunned me was the San Francisco 49ers. They just straight up blanked the Broncos after the Broncos were on a nice little streak. They had beaten some good teams here in the past few weeks, and they couldn't do nothing. Man, George Kittle, 210 yards in the first half. 210 yards in the first half. That's crazy to me. Did you get to see any of that game?
I was actually at the Saints-Bucks game where I watched the Buccaneers play great in the first half and obviously do absolutely nothing in the second half, and Drew Brees obviously did his thing. Kamara looked really cool. Ingram had a nice touchdown, but getting a little off track there. But all I saw from the highlights from that game was George Kittle running forever. Like, I felt he ran a couple miles just straight, untouched. No one wanted to play football against George Kittle in the first half.
I'm kind of pissed, man. He had that 210 yards in the first half. The record is 215 for a tight end in a whole game, and he didn't get one target in the second, or he had one target in the second half, but didn't get one catch in the second half, man. I feel like, I know you're all up 20-0. You're just trying to protect the lead at that point, and that's fine. But come on, man, throw the guy the ball, let him get the record. He basically won the game for you all in the first half. That's just my take on it. He deserved to break that record because he balled out.
100%. I agree with you. I mean, they don't have to like whore them, but definitely, give them like 3 to 4 catch opportunities. I mean, one of them's gonna get 5 yards. Sit him, no big deal. I don't think the Broncos just sold out on Kittle for the rest of the game because definitely didn't have that plan the first half. They're not gonna just completely sell out on him. But whatever. I watched the Niners in person. I have Bucs season tickets, and the Bucs made their offense look like a joke. Like they couldn't move. It was just zone runway and then Kittle flats, like roll pass out the other way. That's their whole offense. And it honestly, for the Broncos, who typically I feel like hang their hat defensively for the last couple years, I mean, it's pretty. I don't know. I don't know if that's the exact matchup that they don't do well at. Like I mean, I don't know how that happens. Like. And like you said, they've been playing good. Like that's it. It doesn't make sense. This whole weekend didn't make any sense to me. Even the game I watched didn't make sense. The Bucs are up 14-3 at half, and we even stopped them in the second half. And then we got the ball and we couldn't do anything. We go to punt, get blocked, and of course you give the Saints any life, especially a blocked punt. The whole quality Saints football history started off a blocked punt, and you give them a blocked punt, they're gonna beat you. I'll put any money. Saints block a punt, they win.
Like you were saying, so just to cap off of that Bucs Saints game. So like you were saying, I host with two other guys. I host Highly Offensive Fantasy Show, my own podcast where we just talk strictly fantasy. And one of my starts this week that I really liked was Jameis Winston, right? So Jameis Winston at the end of the first half had 18 fantasy points in a lot of standard scoring leagues. He finished with 18 fantasy points, man. Like I don't get it. Like how do you even do that? Like he went up to 20 and then he threw a pick on the last play of the game, which is normally -2 in a lot of leagues. Literally had 18 fantasy points at the end of the first half and then ends up with 18 fantasy points. It blows my mind. He was on such a good pace to start the game in the first quarter. He was doing really well running the ball, throwing the ball. He hit Braid a couple times, and then the Saints just flipped it. They just flipped it and took away any offense that the Bucs had. It was crazy to watch.
Yeah, I was sitting there. I was super hyped in the first half. I bought me a new Bucs Letterman jacket. I got the whole classic creamsicle fit. Like I was hyped. I was sitting there, and then we go back in the second half and just lay the egg of the century. Like, oh my God, I just couldn't watch it. There's a couple things I just couldn't watch. Josh Dobbs this weekend couldn't throw the damn foot. Like, why is he a quarterback? Like, why is he a quarterback on a team? Colin Kaepernick is way better than him, and he can't even. Oh my God, not saying that he should have the job there. I'm just saying oh my God, like he's not even a quarterback. He can't. I could throw the ball better than him. Like, and he practices all the time. Hopefully, or the way it looked, it wasn't. But
against the Raiders too, man, that's not a good look. The Raiders do not have a good defense at all.
But the Bucs, honestly, sorry, just to cap up off the Bucs, but the real thing that ended that game is our offensive line couldn't block a soul. Jameis, a lot of the things he did well is he got out of the pocket, escaped a little bit, got a lot of rushing yards. I think he actually had a lot of rushing yards in the first half, if you don't quote me wrong. But
he did, yeah.
And he did a lot of like under the pressure stuff that he's always been kind of good under the pressure sometimes, even though he does turn the ball over a good amount. He usually is good with that, but he can't just run for his life all day. In the second half, Cam Jordan and them boys just were. DeMar Dotson couldn't do anything. None of them could do anything. It was it was tough to watch. And Jameis has got a lot to do, a lot of learning to do, and it's a lot on him because it's always on the quarterback. But that team just on defense, I mean, you can't rely on it. How are you going to go out and play so well in the first half and then just get 28 in the second half? Like a lot of penalties. I don't like Dirk Cutter. I'm anti-Cutter. Get rid of him. I'm not anti-Jameis. I know a lot of friends who are anti-both. And I watched the season tickets I had last year. I mean, it's like run the ball on first down. All right, now throw it to Evans second down. All right, now throw it to Brate. Okay, punt. Like there's no like concepts. Like everything in the NFL now, you see there's like a misdirection. Like if you see the Steelers, a lot of cool things they do. Like they'd have Vernon McDonald, their tight end, in the backfield, which was one of my fantasy players. So that's why I know what he was doing a lot of the times. But he went to block, like, do a running back and like block, but then he'll release. Like every time with the Steelers, you always see like extra little things. The Patriots, they always got plays off of plays off of plays. And I feel like Dirk Cutter's like 2004 running a play. Maybe you switch sides and you go. I don't know. From my point of view, I think it's a coaching issue. I think it's an organizational issue. I also think we don't play defense. Are we paying great Brent Grimes? One of my listeners actually was talking about he can't stand that we pay Brent Grimes as much as we do, and he makes a lot of cool plays. But when your corners, I don't know. The Bucks got a lot of issues going forward, and they have a lot of good young players. They really just need to keep working on the defensive backfield, and we need to keep building that line and to get a running game. Like we have no running game. Like what are we supposed to do? We can't run the ball. We don't have great running backs. We don't even have great receiving backs. Like we just have a bunch of mediocre like backs. Like they kind of do both. They're okay at receiving, okay at running. Or I'd rather have a Tariq Cohen or someone like a James White where he's like almost your security blanket. It's like 6 receptions a game average. That's the type of player. We don't have that guy, and then we don't have a bell cow. So I just feel like we're in the middle. If we had a dominant offensive line, maybe it works like that. I don't know. But I could probably go on about the Bucks and more Tampa sports because, that's where we're from. And honestly, to kind of segue into our next episode, kind of cool, is we're going to actually have one of my old friends from high school who's really well connected in the Bucks organization. He's going to be on our episode and kind of going over. We got some things to actually that we're keeping under wraps for you guys, but a lot of big things coming. The whole sportscast thing we got going on, I'm really been pumped. But the last thing we're going to talk about, and I think just kind of like to, before we end the episode, obviously we could keep going, but we gotta get doing some things. But is D-Wade and LeBron going to face the last time tonight? And it honestly hit me home reading some of the memes. Even LeBron and D-Wade were getting kind of emotional on social media. I know me and you personally always play 2K together. We play basketball in real life together. It's kind of like more of how we enjoy the game, and obviously we like watching it. But it's pretty crazy, like my whole childhood growing up watching LeBron and Wade, to kind of see where they're at now, and like I just can't believe it's their last game playing against each other or with each other.
Man, D-Wade is one of my favorite. D-Wade in his prime is one of my favorite players of all time to watch. That man,
Big facts.
Whenever he picked up that year that they picked up Shaq after him and Kobe had their falling out, and D-Wade had an MVP type season and ended up winning that Finals MVP. I think in 2004, he was just
2006 for the listeners. It was 2006.
2006, yeah.
Yep.
So he was just a straight bucket getter, man. He was a walking bucket. Like in any situation, didn't matter what was going on, who was guarding him. If he wanted to score, that man was scoring. And he was super fast and athletic, but on top of that, just really, really, really smart. Played the game at a very high level for a long time. And it sucks to see him going, man. I'm going to try and watch him as much as I can, this last season, just because of the simple fact that I feel like I owe him one. Because he was so fun to watch growing up. But, LeBron, was calling him his brother, saying that, it's a really sad time that's the last time they're going to be playing against each other. When they set up the big three in Miami, D-Wade, kind of took a little bit of a step back to let LeBron have the team, and it helped them win a couple of championships, and that just shows what kind of player he is. He is he's a very good player and a very good dude, and I hate to see him retire, but everything all the good players come to an end. But should be a fun game tonight. I'm definitely going to try and catch that one.
Yeah, honestly, I'm definitely trying to watch some of that. I'm gonna be going to a little get together with my girl and her work, so hopefully I can duck away from all her employees and go watch me some basketball. But I think D-Wade, I agree with you. probably one of my favorite players to watch. I mean, clutch in my mind. He's just one of those guys who wants the ball. I mean, I remember I fell in love with D Wade when he went to Marquette. Like when I was a kid, I'd watch him at Marquette, and he was the man. And then when he went to the NBA, he just kind of kept being that guy, and like his athleticism was through the roof. His just a leader. You know, that's why he was able to be humble. One of the things I think you notice, especially in his latter of his career, not being the player he once was, is he was able to be humble and kind of take a backseat role. You know, even like with LeBron, he kind of like let LeBron lead the team. Like, that's a pretty tough thing to do, to be Dwayne Wade your whole life. Like being Dwayne Wade. I know kids who think they're all special at LA Fitness and they can't pass the ball in a fucking bullshit game. And Dwayne Wade's humble enough, I mean, for 20 years, he was the best player that he ever knew. And because they all think they're the best. Like, you don't think you're not Dwayne Wade, and you don't think you're the best player in the nation or in the country, or, to be a finals MVP. Like, think about it. He's a finals MVP with Shaq, and did he win one with LeBron too, or is that LeBron won both of those? I'm not sure.
Good question.
Yeah,
that's a good question.
And honestly, if you were gonna say like as much, like LeBron's definitely clutch, but I think he's all game clutch, and he's definitely clutch in the end. He's proved that like over and over. But even Dwayne Wade, I mean, I don't mind Dwayne Wade having it over LeBron in some instances. I think he has a sweeter mid-range game than LeBron does.
To your point, for LeBron and Chris Bosh to even go to Miami says a lot about Dwayne Wade, because he could have easily, whenever the free agency opened up and they were all three free agents, he could have easily said, hell no, man, this is my team. I own Miami. I run Miami right now. I already won a championship by myself. Why the hell do I need these guys to come play with me? But instead, he actually started the conversation with LeBron. LeBron was reaching out to other primetime players in the NBA at that time, reaching out, seeing what teams he could make to get a big three together. And he, ended up talking to Dwayne Wade, and they ended up getting Chris Bosh there. But that, to me, says a lot about D Wade. Like you were saying, he took a step back, let LeBron, a player in his prime who was already in the conversation for best player in the NBA, on his way to one of the best players of all time. And he took a step back and said, come play with me in Miami. I want to win some rings. And that's what they did. They won a couple of rings. He ended up even going to Cleveland, coming off the bench, never bitched, coming off the bench, trying to win championships there as well. So he's a hell of a player and a hell of a guy, in my opinion, and deserves all the recognition we can give him as far as talking about his career, talking about the cool-ass dunks he had whenever I was watching him when I was little, stuff like that. It was great.
Yeah, honestly, I think a couple of things stand out to me, in my opinions, on him. One, he's the third greatest scoring guard of all time, behind Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. Two, he's the greatest Heat player ever. And when you're the greatest player of an organization as winning as the Heat, or, that has multiple championships, that speaks volumes. So I think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, bar none. Definitely, I think I just, as you were talking, I Googled up, there's a Orlando Heat game in Miami in March, and there's no doubt in my mind I'm going to be trying to drive to that one.
Hell yeah.
And then, so I'm actually pretty excited about hopefully seeing your boy Dwayne in person. I think I might have seen him. I went to a Heat game, but he might have been hurt. I don't think he was. I think he was on the Bulls at the time. But he was on the Bulls at the time because it was when Deion Waiters hit the game winner against Golden State. Crazy game. But all the props to Dwayne Wade, man. We're such a great role model. I think losing him in the NBA and the way society's going is definitely going to be a loss. So I hope he stays around in a broadcasting form, just so kids can know who Dwayne Wade is, because if you could see how being humble, and I think a lot of people lose that fact. Like, yes, you want to be the star guy, but sometimes you got to take what if you were the second or third best dude on your team and you won states compared to being the best guy and have a losing record? But I mean, just pick your poison, man, because I don't see a lot of guys on losing teams who are the best having a blast. So I think, Dwayne Wade played I don't think he's the third greatest scoring guard ever by himself. I think he was the smart one and went about it. So congrats. Another great episode in the book, man. Talk about some basketball, a lot of crazy football, had a blast. Can't wait for our next episode with my boy Mike. And honestly, can't wait for another one.
Also, yeah, man, thanks for having me again. One other note that makes Dwayne Wade the GOAT is Gabrielle Union last year mentioned that he likes to get his ass eaten. And, that's something that is hilarious. And it shows you that he's a man because he'll admit that shit. But, no, that's D-Wade's one of a kind, bro. And I'm glad we made some time for him on the podcast. And thank you for having me on once again. I'm excited to listen to your all's Bucks podcast because I think that's going to be really beneficial in that local area you're down there. And guys, check me out as far as the fantasy playoffs go. I will help you win. Had a lot of good calls this week. Helped a lot of my friends win their playoff matchups this week. It's Highly Offensive Fantasy Show. You can hit us up on Twitter, Instagram, or in iTunes.
Yeah, obviously with this comment, it's very offensive over there. I apologize to all my Catholic listeners. I don't even know what he's talking about, so I'm confused as well. But honestly, they helped me a lot this year. I squeezed in the playoffs when I didn't deserve to after the draft I had, and honestly almost beat the number 1 seed if it wasn't for Ben Roethlisberger just magically getting healthy again, which is very questionable. Well, whatever, hate on Le'Veon. But yeah, guys, check him out for your fantasy info. Make sure you subscribe to his podcast, to our podcast, so you get the episodes right to your phones. Appreciate the support.
Automatically download them.
Boom. Yep. Yeah. So, guys, have a good night. And again, peace.
Thanks, guys.
So you the little nigga getting that bread, huh? Head busting off top just to show 'em you ain't scared, huh?